All right, preseason is over, and obviously there's players who have gone up the rankings and down the rankings, and we got to talk about it, bro, because obviously there's been some risers this preseason. One of them has been Malik Neighbors, my man, and that dude has been going crazy. Obviously, P, I've talked about Malik Neighbors. I ain't really feeling him like that right now, man. I feel like the one thing that everybody's loving about him is the targets and the volume. He had 5 catches that one game or 5 targets, whatever it was. But the team hasn't thrown a touchdown all offseason. They haven't thrown a touchdown since the 2023 season. So we're expecting Malik Neighbors to be a top 25 guy. How is that going to happen if this team doesn't throw touchdowns? So to me, his ADP is rising. His value is rising, right, to us among the fantasy community, to the fantasy analysts. But let's be real. Like, the offense is still going to be bad. There's still going to be no volume in the passing game. So in order for Malik Neighbors to justify his top 20, top 25 ADP, there would have to be like some kind of crazy change at quarterback. And that's not happening at the early part of the season, unfortunately. Danny Dimes the player you got to trust in. And right now, P, I don't know that it's worth trusting in. I don't know that I would draft Malik Neighbors as the top 20 receiver. It would take, to me, I think there's a lot of starting options. You talk about Calvin Ridley, Terry McLaurin, Rashee Rice. There's a lot of players that should be going right now over Malik Neighbors, and they're going after him, bro. I don't like this rising.
Well, there's something about this that I do appreciate. I do like, like every now and then you got wide receivers that come out, like rookie wide receivers that just look like they have that it factor, right? They look like that they just got it. And it seems like a lot of those guys have been coming out of LSU. You know what I'm saying? You look at your Justin Jeffersons. You look at your Jamar Chases. Like, those guys have seen early success. And it looks like LSU was just pumping out these wide receivers who are just full of bravado, just full of swag. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes you need a guy like that that is going to turn around your franchise. So although his ADP right now is at, what is it at? Wide receiver 20.
I mean, that's going early.
That to me is pretty high, and I'm not going to hold you with that. Can he do it? Yeah, man. It looks like he's been cutting up. It looks like he's been cutting up in practice. He's been torching Detroit's DBs, and he looks like he has that factor that just, let's go up and get it. You know what I mean? Let me go up and get it. So you don't want to miss out on that, especially in dynasty leagues and whatnot. And if you have something like that in redraft, ideally, you would like to see something like that at an ADP probably 20 spots lower than what he is, so he could actually be a league winner. Right now, with his ADP baked in, it's not giving him a chance to be a league winner. You know what I'm saying? Because you do have to draft him above some proven people, but I'm not mad at it. I'll tell you, like, I like his chances. Almost similarly to who I'm not as high on as
MPH.
Marvin Harrison Jr.
MHJ.
Who am I talking about? MPH. I'm thinking about Michael Porter. My bad.
Michael Porter Jr.
Michael Porter Jr.
I don't know who you talking about right now, bro. But no, man, there's a couple other risers too. Obviously, Dalton Kincaid, somebody that's been climbing up. He's been in about the tight end type of 5-7 range, and I think a lot of people are starting to view him as the next guy, the guy that could be the tight end 1 in there. So I like Dalton Kincaid, not really drafting a whole lot of them. I think Kyle Pitts has similar upside. You can get him around the same range, but Dalton Kincaid, the guy who's going up the rankings as well.
Yeah, that's right, man. That's my man. I've been talking about him a few times on my channel. Dalton Kincaid, man. You know what? One of the things that's causing him to rise is really how the other wide receivers and pass catchers on the Bills are doing, right? So Keon Coleman hasn't been looking that good this preseason. Curtis Samuel got hurt. So he's been really the one consistent point, which is what you want to see in fantasy, right? So he's now going as like I believe in like tight end 4 range, tight end 3 range, which I'm not mad at, because I have him as my tight end 1.
Tight end 1, that's a hefty tag, but could be worth it for those if it pays out. Now, as we go down, Kamani Vidal is another guy for the Chargers. And this is one of those players, P. It goes one of two ways. Either the 6th round pick hits, and everybody who scouted him in college and been talking him up, they're right. But for the most part, what do we see out of these 6th round guys?
They don't make
fall
it.
off. They have no impact on the team at all. The team signed Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. And what's the talk on them? Oh, they're old. They're injury prone. The same thing we hear all the time. But this is Jim Harbaugh. This is an offense that's going to be running the football with a really good offensive line, to be honest with you. And you look at a guy in a 6th-round pick in Kamani Vidal, and there's a lot to like because, you know, he's going to have opportunity. But this is a guy that's 3rd, maybe 4th on the depth chart. You got to hold him now throughout half the season just to even have a glimpse of reward. And to me, I don't want players like that. I don't want to have a hope and a prayer and a wish that I got to drop week 3 because my bench looks thin because I got injured players. I got players on bye. That's going to be the first time. He's going to be the first player to go if he doesn't start in the first week or 2. So I like Kamani Vidal. I think it's a good feel-good story for now. But I need players that are going to have an immediate impact. And I don't see immediate impact in his future when you got 2 guys ahead of him that know the system, will produce. Gus Edwards will produce. I'm out on Kamani Vidal this year.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those players who do have a high upside if you get him, you know, if he hits, right? But you need a lot of things to work in your favor for him to hit, right? So he looks like a good runner, like you mentioned, behind a great offensive line or what looks to be a really good offensive line, especially with how we know Harbaugh to do it. But to me, somebody who fits Harbaugh's mold probably better than Vidal is the person in front of him, Gus Edwards, right? So unless Gus Edwards gets hurt, you know, and is he hurt him? And JK, right? Because he's third on the depth chart. But unless Gus Edwards get hurt, JK historically has been hurt. But you have to beat out 2 guys. You have to show that you're something special in order to beat out 2 other guys who profile the same as him. So, yeah, I mean, if he hits, he hits. But it's not somebody I would draft. He's somebody that I would, you know, probably hold your fantasy bucks, your waiver bucks, just in case that injury does happen.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that'll like emerge just randomly on week 4 when you're not expecting it. Week 10, he's going to be like, oh, now you can pick him up. So that's the kind of player I would pick up later on instead of roster. A couple of players that are earning starting roles, Bo Nix and Brian Thomas in different ways. Bo Nix has taken over the starting spot over there in Denver. Well worth the ADP rise. Obviously, this is a guy that's probably going to be on the high-end QB3 radar any given week, but this is a bad Broncos team. Not a lot of weapons there. I'm not overly excited. And then Brian Thomas, another player who I am actually excited about, taking over in Jacksonville, showing a lot of deep ball, acumen and really in preseason, really showing himself. Training camps, him and Trevor look like they have a connection. So we've seen kind of Christian Kirk. We know he hasn't been playing in 2 receiver sets. He's been playing a lot of slot. Gabe Davis is signed, and we know he's a big play guy. If Brian Thomas Jr. can be that wide receiver 1 for this team come midseason, this might be, outside of Marvin Harrison and Malik Neighbors, this might be the best rookie wide receiver that there is in this class. So for Brian Thomas in this Jacksonville offense, I think they've been looking for that. They signed Calvin Ridley to play that role last year. He played well, but not well enough and didn't come at the tag that they want. Brian Thomas, they got him locked in the first round, and a lot of excitement about him around Jacksonville. So Brian Thomas is a player I got my eye on, and I've been drafting a lot as a flex player, especially if I need upsides because I'm a guy that drafts the old players.
Yeah, that's facts. That's facts. Yeah. Brian Thomas Jr., BTJ is what I've been calling him. I've been snagging him up in all of my dynasty leagues, but somebody I've been paying attention to more a lot in redraft just for the reasons you mentioned, so he's a little, under the radar because you're talking about your Marvin Harrison Jr.'s, you're talking about your Malik Neighbors, you're talking about, your Keon Coleman's, Romo Dunze, right? So I would prefer him over, obviously, Romo Dunze because he comes out and he looks like the perfect package, right? When it comes to height, when it comes to speed, he's in the 4.3s. He's 6'3", 6'4", but he's known for his route running. And if there's anything that's going to, allow you to take off and excel at the NFL level, it's a supreme route runner, right? If you have that, then the sky's the limit, right? Especially with the combination of his speed. He's tied to Trevor Lawrence, who I do have as a bounce back candidate, but Trevor Lawrence is mad accurate, right? They drafted him to pair him with Trevor Lawrence. Now he's taken over that starter position in 2 wide receiver sets. It just looks great, right? It just looks great. I anticipate them, obviously being some bumps in the road, but listen, if he crosses 1,000 yards, I wouldn't be surprised, bro. I would not be surprised. So
Not at all.
he's somebody that you can take towards the end of the draft and can potentially be a league winner.
I hate using that term, but he's the type of player you get him at the right level, and if he does stick with Trevor, it's going to be a problem. 2 second-year players. We talked about rookies there. 2 second-year players that have also started to see their ADP rise for different reasons. JSN and Rashee Rice. JSN obviously some strong preseason performances, so good news there for him. And he's a player that I've been advocating for a lot over this offseason. And then Rashee Rice, we have not heard anything about a suspension. There is some rumors swirling that he might avoid suspension this year and that things will be addressed in 2025. So Rashee Rice, the only thing I would say about this is I see the ADP rise, but I don't see the same production that we saw last year with him. And I think this is one of those things where we'll be thinking about how we finished the season off last year, but we're also not thinking about Hollywood Brown, how he's new on the team. We're not thinking about how the team took a first-round pick in Xavier Worthy, how they said they want to get Isaiah Pacheco involved on third downs and more work in the receiving game, how Juju Smith-Schuster just signed. So I think with this offense, it's going to be a spread-it-out type feel, and they've had limited options over the years. This is one of those years again where they're gonna have spread it out options, where they're gonna have big plays. They're gonna have some games where they feed it inside. So I think I like Rashee Rice, the player, respect what he did last season, but I think this is a new year, and I hope that his ADP doesn't climb too high because it feels like it's climbing fast, but it might get to a point where we're taking him over some more reliable names, your Devontae Smiths, your Jalen Waddles, guys that are a little bit more reliable in their roles, because Rashee Rice is at best the wide receiver 2 on this team behind Travis Kelce.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. The thing about how that goes, I know that they had a lot of additions this year, right? You mentioned Pacheco stepping up in the third down role. You mentioned the additions of Hollywood Brown, Juju, who they just signed, and Xavier Worthy. But to me, all of that is hearsay, right? When you think about him, you see all the pluses, and then you start to just kind of subconsciously think about the negatives and what can knock him down, right? Sometimes when it comes to when it comes to in-game moments, you're going to go to the players that you trust. Last year, he proved to be a safety blanket for Pat Mahomes, right? So him, Travis Kelce, you still got a rookie and in Xavier Worthy. So is that rapport going to be there? Is that trust going to be there? Are they going to use him primarily in the deep on deep routes? Maybe, right? They're going to sub some stuff in, but Hollywood Brown and Worthy are fast guys. They can stretch the field, right? They can take the safeties away. Rashee Rice primarily made his living, in the center of the field, made his living catching the ball close to the line of scrimmage and kind of making stuff happen, right? So I see him as more of a PPR blanket. But there are a lot more mouths to feed, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was like 90 catches, 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns, right? And for that ADP, for where he's at right now, his ADP still is rising, but it still is pretty low. So if you can get him at that price, that's a big dub. That's a big dub.
Yeah, high-end wide receiver 3, I love it.